All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. So, the Michigan Wolverines redemption tour continues as they were able to outlast the Alabama Crimson Tide today in the Rose Bowl and advance to the national championship contest next Monday night in Houston. Defense was the name of the game in Pasadena today and this evening, as both the Wolverines and Crimson Tide left it all out on the field. Now, Michigan's special teams almost cost them this game. You think about it, the muffed punt early on, which led to Alabama's first touchdown. The botched extra point attempt, rather, a missed field goal in the second half, and then another muffed punt at the end of regulation, which was almost big. Michigan's defense, though, credit to them throughout this contest because they kept Alabama's offense off balance for the entire first half. Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe was sacked 5 times in the first half by this Wolverines defense, and that would tell the story for this contest in the second half as well. The pressure that Michigan put on Milroe from the jump, which led to Alabama's condensed playbook in the second half on offense, as Tommy Reese and Nick Saban were basically running the single wing out there, trying to get it done with Jalen Milroe, and almost were able to pull it off. But you go back to it, critical errors for this Alabama offense, which included that Milroe fumble in the second half, as well as the bad snaps that really kill some momentum for this Alabama offense. You think about it because you knew it was 13-10 at the half in favor of Michigan. And it was scary because the Wolverines had basically dominated the first half. And when it was all said and done, they only had a 3-point lead. And a Nick Saban led team is going to make adjustments. Nick Saban is arguably the best in the business when it comes to making adjustments. He made adjustments. Alabama really came running the football more effective to start the third quarter. They were driving, and then back to back bad snaps by this Alabama offense killed that momentum. Then when the Crimson Tide are up 17-13 rather, and they look like they're driving, look like they have some momentum, about to score another touchdown. The Jalen Milroe fumble happens. They were able to avoid a disaster due to the fact that the Wolverines themselves would then go on and miss the impending field goal, and Alabama themselves had to settle for a field goal later. But nonetheless, those issues really came back to really hurt Alabama this afternoon and this evening. Now, it's one of those where you look at it from the Wolverines' perspective. Blake Corum, this Michigan offensive line, and the Michigan front seven on defense are why this team is headed to Houston next Monday night. I look at it because the Wolverines decided the game early on in the trenches. And the reason why I say this is because they established their will. Because Alabama, to me, I expected Alabama to come out and run the football a little bit more to begin this game. Alabama came out throwing, and Michigan just blitzed Jalen Milroe from all angles. And he and this Alabama offense were not ready for it. It threw the timing of this offense off throughout the bulk of the first half. And when it was all said and done, Michigan's defense imposed their will. We saw the Wolverines get things going, running the football in the first half with Blake Corum, and it was telling as this contest went on. I mean, you figure 19 carries for Blake Corum on the ground, excuse me, 83 yards, and he also had a touchdown on the ground as well as one receiving. And of course, the touchdown on the ground was the game winner. And if you're Michigan, you were able to exercise some demons in this contest under Jim Harbaugh because they have not done well against top 10 teams while they've also failed in their first two trips to the college football playoff. We saw them get destroyed by Georgia a couple of years ago in the Orange Bowl in the semis. And then last year, when they were favored against TCU, they were unable to overcome their mistakes, and it was the Horned Frogs that went on to Inglewood to take on Georgia. But Michigan has talked about trying to right the wrongs this season, and right now they're 60 football minutes away from college football's ultimate grail, which is winning the national championship. But for Michigan, for me, their will in the final 5 minutes of regulation is a big reason why this team is going to Houston to play next Monday night. They were down 17-13. Alabama was driving. Okay. And at that point, if Alabama scores a touchdown to go up 24-13, the way that their defense was playing, more than likely this contest was over. Still, with that said, they had fourth down deep in their own territory, and the big pass to Blake Corum, which really got this offense going. And it was their big playmakers on that drive, which led to the game time touchdown, being Blake Corum and JJ McCarthy, which was a big reason why the Wolverines were able to tie this score. Then, of course, defensively making the key plays to keep Alabama out of field goal range late. And like I said before, Michigan really dodged a bullet on that late muff punt in the late in the fourth quarter there by Jake Thaw. It's one of those where it's kind of like the golden rule where you stand on your 10-yard line, and if the ball goes over your head, you just take your chances and let it bounce into the end zone. Thaw fielded that punt at the 5 and muffed it. And for a moment, it looked like it was going to go into the end zone. That's how close it was. Really changed Michigan's, thought process with two timeouts left, clearly. And then it looked like Alabama was about to recover it as well. The momentum was like really up in the air at that standpoint, but Michigan was able to hold on. And of course, the rest is history for them. Now, from Alabama's standpoint, over the last 2 months, Jalen Milroe has been a catalyst for this offense. And I know that probably going to be some people out there right now that are critical of this young man. But first and foremost, Alabama does not get to this point without Jalen Milroe. He just did not have a good game today. You look inside the numbers, he completed 16 of his 23 attempts passing just for a buck 16. He did have 63 yards on the ground. And as a team, Alabama rushed for 172. And I think a credit to that is the adjustments that were made at halftime by Nick Saban, because he realized, listen, we couldn't get anything done with our passing attack. So he then opted to go out there and have Jalen Milroe be the athlete that he can be. And Jalen Milroe was one of the greatest athletes entering the field today. And he did, show a lot of flashes throughout this contest. He did have some key mistakes throughout nonetheless. But you figure the running of Milroe, the running of Jace McClellan, running of Justice Haynes was a big reason why Alabama's offense really was able to get it going in that second half. Defensively, after the Wolverines' first two touchdowns, I think at halftime, Nick Saban and company really did a good job of making adjustments, to try to neutralize this Michigan offense, which really didn't do a lot until the final moments of this contest. But like I said, credit to the Wolverines, because it was their will and their determination that was able to overcome that very stingy Alabama defense. So it's on to Houston for Jim Harbaugh and Michigan, as they exercise some demons today, but the job is not done, as they're going to take on a very good Washington or Texas team next Monday night. We know both of them are tied right now at 21 in the Superdome, but nonetheless, Michigan, they definitely have to clean things up on special teams. Anybody who wants to go out there and tell you that special teams is not a big part of the game, well, guess what? In my opinion, they really don't know football. It's one of those where Michigan, they dodged a couple of bullets today, because you figure early on, matter of fact, the first play of the game, when JJ McCarthy threw the interception to Caleb Downs, which was overturned just due to the fact that Caleb Downs had stepped out of bounds first and didn't reestablish himself as of yet. And it was one of those moments right there when McCarthy threw that interception that if you're a Michigan fan, you have to say, oh no, here we go again. We get to these moments and we just can't get over the hump and we keep finding ways to lose. No, I think the fact that Michigan was able to survive that, it allowed McCarthy to slow down and settle down a little bit, but still, the turnover on the punt, which led to the touchdown, and then for Michigan to come back and immediately respond to that by scoring a touchdown was big. Got their crowd into the game. I think any butterflies that they had, on offense at least, it allowed them to keep going to get it going rather than that. But you look at this right now. Michigan, they've been on a mission all season long. The two suspensions to Jim Harbaugh, Michigan survived that. Beating Ohio State without Jim Harbaugh, you had Sharon Moore, the offensive line coach, uh, you know, filling in as the interim head coach in that contest, winning the Big Ten championship, and then going out there and beating Alabama today. There were multiple reasons, okay, why I picked Alabama in this game. Number one, the matchup between Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh. That one was won today by Saban. By Harbaugh, rather, excuse me. On top of that, Michigan's history in recent years against Jim Harbaugh, pardon me, against Nick Saban has not been good. In bowl games, regular season, it does not matter. Michigan's history under Harbaugh against top five teams, Michigan's history, overall at the Rose Bowl, a lot of these things, and just at the end of the day, it's just very tough to pick against a guy like Nick Saban when you give him extra time to prepare. And that is not a disrespect to the Michigan Wolverines, but the Wolverines brought it today and they clearly deserve to win. And that is a big reason why they're playing next Monday night. Now, on the flip side, in spite of the loss, I don't care what anybody says. Alabama deserved to be there because it's one of those things, in my opinion, and I said this last month, the committee got it right. I know that Florida State just got blown out by Georgia in the Orange Bowl. But even if Florida State had their entire squad healthy and guys were not opting out, sans Jordan Travis, because we know that Jordan Travis still was not going to be able to play, they would have lost to the Wolverines today easily by 20. Okay. And that's not a disrespect to Florida State. It's just the fact that they are a different team without Jordan Travis, rather, excuse me. The Florida game to end the regular season proved that, as did the Louisville game. Alabama deserved to be there. They beat the top team in the nation heading into conference championship weekend in Georgia. They won the SEC, and the Crimson Tide, plain and simple, deserved to be there. And they played like a team that was worthy of winning a national championship. And like I said before, and I'll say it again, this field of four for the college football playoff is very special because each team coming into this tournament has a legit chance to winning it all. I thought Alabama could win it all. Michigan could win it all. The winner of tonight's game between Texas and Washington has the ability to win it all. Not that often that you could say that in the college football playoff, but this is definitely one year. Now, Pasadena and the Rose Bowl have given us some epic showdowns in the semis. You think back a couple of years ago when Georgia and Oklahoma faced off in that thriller in Pasadena that went to overtime with the Bulldogs winning. And of course, they advanced to the championship game in Atlanta where they lost to Alabama in overtime. And speaking of overtime, should the overtime rules in college football be changed? Now, this is not the first time in the playoff that we've seen a game go to overtime. I just talked about the Georgia Alabama game a couple of years ago. This is not the first time that we've seen a championship game go to overtime. You think back 20 years ago with Miami and Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. I've never, okay, been a fan personally of the college football playoff overtime rules. It's one of those just starting the contest I mean, starting an overtime frame on the 25-yard line, I think is a joke. I think it's more about sudden death, and you let these guys play. And you think about it, it was the defenses that really dictated things. Granted, don't get me wrong, you still got to go out there and play defense at the 25-yard line, but nonetheless, I think it changes a lot of things as far as what teams do. Now, on the flip side, I'm not a fan of the new overtime rules in the National Football League. I think you should play sudden death there as well. Things begin to change about 15 years back when the Saints beat the Vikings in the NFC Championship game. And of course, they did it on a field goal, and Minnesota never had an opportunity to possess the football. Then things were adjusted even more a couple of years ago in the AFC Championship game when the Patriots beat the Chiefs with a touchdown, and the Chiefs offense and Patrick Mahomes never had the chance to touch the ball. And then, of course, a couple of years ago, in the divisional round with the Chiefs and Bills, and of course, the overtime rules keep changing rather. I think it should be sudden death, and I really would have loved to have seen a sudden death scenario today between Alabama and Michigan. But nonetheless, the rules are there. Both teams played by those rules. Michigan won; they deserved it, and that is a big reason why they're going on to the championship game. Now, of course, many people are going to sit back right now and question that final play call for Alabama. And I guarantee you, Tommy Reese, the Alabama offensive coordinator, is not a popular guy in Tuscaloosa. I'll tell you like this: it's easy, to sit back and second guess right now. Nick Saban has already said Alabama had their play called. Michigan recognized it, called the timeout. Then Alabama called the timeout. But nonetheless, I think at that point, fourth and goal from the 4-yard line, I think Reese would have been better served, even though that Alabama and Milroe have had struggled passing the football all game. I think they would have been better served giving him a run pass option as opposed to just trying to run up through the teeth of that Michigan defense. And of course, Milroe was stopped short, and the Wolverines went on to win this contest. I guarantee you that play call is going to be second guessed by the folks in Tuscaloosa for a very long time. But nonetheless, in spite of the loss, Alabama had themselves a tremendous season. They were a team after the loss to Texas, and honestly, even before the loss to Texas, I really felt like they flew under the radar because the explosive offenses that we've seen in recent years from Alabama, it wasn't really there. It was more like a workman-like approach offensively. You know what you're going to get from a Nick Saban defense because he easily has about 4 or 5 guys right now on that defense that can and will start in the National Football League very soon. But the explosion wasn't there on offense. But Alabama kept going out there and winning games. Jalen Milroe and his offense got better and better by each week. But again, that was not the case today. As this side of Georgia, this was probably the best defense that Alabama has faced all season long. But nonetheless, with Nick Saban leading the way, especially in this expanded college football playoff that's coming, I guarantee you, Alabama's not going anywhere. It's one of those for Michigan. You're on to Houston. You've got to be so happy that you exercised some demons this afternoon, winning a college football playoff game, getting to the national championship game, beating a top 5 team, beating Alabama. Okay, all of those things, despite of the fact that you were slightly favored in this contest, definitely have to be big in the psyche of the Michigan Wolverines. I think, come next Monday night, they're going to stick with what got them there. They're going to try to be the most physical team on the football field. They're going to run. And it's one of those, I guarantee you, whoever it's going to be next Monday night, whether it's Washington or Texas, it's not going to be as easy to slow down their respective passing games. I mean, the winner of this contest tonight in the Sugar Bowl more than likely is going to score 40 points at the pace that both of these teams are going on. So this Wolverines defense is definitely going to have to be up for the challenge. But nonetheless, Michigan went to Pasadena. They took care of their business against a very good football team. Alabama was definitely deserving to win. Michigan played like they wanted to win, and they were deserving to win as well. We knew that we had to have a winner and a loser, and it's the Wolverines as they're heading back to Ann Arbor as a very happy group of young men, while it's going to be a very long ride back to Tuscaloosa or the Crimson Tide. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I know you folks want to get back to watch the second half of Washington, Texas. Definitely enjoy that. I'll have something to talk about that come tomorrow. But until then, take care, enjoy yourselves, and have a good one. Be well, everybody.